Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Bonnie back with another video. Sorry I've been super inconsistent at videos. I really am gonna try to work on making that better, but no guarantees on when that's actually gonna happen because 2020 is quite a year. So today I wanted to talk about what it was like to actually have a seasonal job during COVID. I know a lot of places didn't open. The places that did opened at much smaller capacity for the most part, and so a lot of people just weren't able to work seasonal jobs, whether it was going to be their first time or whether they were just trying to return to a job they've been to. So I want to talk a little bit about what it was like, the things I liked, the things I disliked. Overall, it wasn't a completely positive or negative experience, but it was an entirely different experience than I had had before. So last season, from the end of September to mid-October, I did work at the Grand Canyon National Park. I was there for about 6 weeks. It was just the very tail end of their summer. I had worked in Alaska for their full summer last summer, so about first week of September I lost my job there and then just went to the Grand Canyon. So I went back to a place that I was familiar with, that I had been to. It was the North Rim of the Grand Canyon that is currently run by Forever Resorts, though I have heard their contract may expire next year. A lot of ifs on that. But yes, it was a company and a place I had worked for before, so I did have some expectations going in, even knowing how crazy the world is with COVID. And yeah, there were a lot of things that were entirely different. One thing I do want to point out is, so I arrived to the Grand Canyon, I want to say it was about the first week of June, and about 6 or 7 days after I arrived, which was when most of the staff arrived, we were actually evacuated because of a fire happening very close to the park. It caused a lot of power lines to go out and caused us to lose our power. So that was definitely a huge part of how the year ended up playing out, because that caused them to have to evacuate the whole staff. That meant we didn't open later. And then that also meant that the company was spending a lot of money and also losing a lot of income that had been projected in that period of time. So that was definitely a big part of why my season went the way it did. But I also felt the need to bring it up that, hey, that did happen. So definitely just keep that in mind when I've explained everything else that happened this season, that beyond just COVID, there were some serious things going on with the location I was at. So the big thing was we opened very late. I'd said we opened about 6 weeks later than projected. We typically would open mid-May for a season that would go until the end of October, and we ended up opening, I think it was the first week of July. I want to say it was July 5th or 6th, because I remember us all having our 4th of July party together and talking about how we were opening and this was going to be our last big time to all hang out together. So it was, I'd say about July 5th or 6th we opened, so about 6 weeks later than typical, and some of that delay was because of COVID, but again, about 3 weeks of that delay was because of a fire. So a lot of interesting things happened there this summer. As I'm sure you figured out, the staff was lower because of COVID, so that meant we couldn't have more than one person per dorm, you know, which was nice. We all got our own room, but it also meant a lot of the cabins weren't open. We weren't allowed to have guests sit in the restaurant, which meant no servers were needed, and just a lot of other little things like that that just eliminated a lot of staff. And so I was lucky to be among the staff that was picked. However, hours were also a lot lower because of a combination of, like I said, there was a lot less work, and then also the fact that during that fire, the company had had to house and feed all of their staff. It was, you know, in our contract that we would get housed and fed during that period of time, so they lost a substantial amount of money during this fire. So that caused them to have to be careful on hours, and that's understandable. So that was definitely interesting for me to go in there expecting that I'd be working, you know, 50, 70 hours a week like I'd gotten last season, and instead I was getting about 30 or 40. There were absolutely no J1s, which, you know, it's COVID. We're not accepting international people really, so that wasn't a shock. But it was also weird to be in a place where I had worked there before previously in a season, and where in a way you were used to the place being like alive, I guess you could say, with all the different people and music and languages, and to not have that was really unusual, especially because the staff was just so small. It wasn't like the J1s had been replaced with Americans. The J1s were just eliminated, and those jobs they'd had were just completely gone. So we had, I'd say, about a third of the staff that we normally did, which made the employee area really quiet. There was a lot less partying. There was, you know, security would constantly tell me how bored they were. Like, there wasn't much going on. The people who were there, I definitely got a lot closer with, and I feel like I know a lot better. But overall, it was an entirely different experience. And to walk into a place that I had worked before with the expectation of thinking that things would be even remotely how they had been, it was a little bit of a culture shock. And again, this isn't saying that it's all bad. A lot of these things were good because it was quiet. I was able to crochet more. I was able to read more. I went on more hikes and had more personal development. Like I said, I got closer to the people who were there. But it was definitely a shock, and I don't know if I was necessarily prepared for it or if I knew what I was getting into. So it was an interesting experience, and I would just say, if you are thinking about doing any seasonal work while COVID's going on, especially if it's a place you have been before, then just really consider how much the culture and the community and the job itself even will change. My job really didn't change that much. I was pantry, so, you know, I continued making sandwiches and salads. The only difference was we were doing to-go stuff, like grab and go, rather than plates. So my job was pretty much the same, but I would say about 90% of my friends and other people I worked with there, their jobs were entirely different than they had been the year before because of COVID making more cleaning, you know, different social distancing things, and all these other different rules that we're kind of living with now. It really impacts the jobs and the way you interact with the guest, and that's definitely something to consider. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I really didn't have a bad experience. I loved it. But it is something to make sure you are prepared for when you enter, that it might not be exactly what it was. It won't be exactly what it was before. It just won't be. But yeah, I hope this helps you guys in considering if you want to do seasonal job in this weird time we live in. I definitely don't want to discourage it. Just, I want you to know that things have definitely changed with it. It was pretty weird for me to have a seasonal job and have my own bedroom. Like, it was a very bittersweet thing, because, you know, on one hand I loved my roommates and getting to know all these people, but on the other hand, you know, it was nice to feel like a real adult with my own place and my own privacy. So I guess it's just one of those things, you have to take the good with the bad, but overall there was a lot of positive sides to it. So if you guys enjoyed this, hit the like and subscribe, comment down below with anything you have to add. If you've worked in a seasonal job recently, any questions, if you're thinking about it, I'd love to help out, and I will talk to you guys again soon.